for joining the Art Gallery of Regina and award-winning photographic artist Vera Saltzman over Zoom video conference. I'm Sandy Moore. I'm the curator of exhibitions and programming at the Art Gallery of Regina. Vera will share her unique hybrid of digital and analog photography techniques, give viewers a glimpse into her home-based developing lab, and talk about her unconventional path to becoming an artist tonight. The first part of tonight's presentation will take the form of a traditional artist talk. Vera will spend the first 30 minutes or so, we're not going to hold to any strict time limits, showing examples of her authentic and empathetic portraits of people and locales. In particular, she will discuss how creating a sense of place and a record of the intangible drives her creative practice. Following the presentation and discussion of her images, Vera will transition to a short tour of her at-home workspace. The artist talk and virtual tour will conclude with a question and answer period led by AGR's curator of exhibitions and programming. That's me, Sandy Moore, she, her. Please ensure that your microphones are turned off. So if you're joining from a computer like me, the lower left hand of your screen, you'll see two icons, microphone button, and if you press it and click mute, you'll see a slash come through it, red slash come through it. And there's also beside that a video icon. And if you find that the stream is slowing down or lagging for you, I recommend turning off your self video. So that may assist you with those issues. And as we mentioned before, if you are taking full advantage of our experiencing art from home and you didn't put on any pants for this artist talk tonight, you can turn off your video as well. I also recommend, again, if you're joining from a computer like me, there's a kind of film clapper in the top right corner, and it says view, and I recommend that you select speaker view. Right now, Vera and I are spotlighted, so you should see us virtually side by side, but definitely at least we're definitely 2 meters or more apart. And then when I'm done making my remarks, it'll be all Vera. Following the talk and tour, we do invite questions from the audience. I know how important it is for people to connect with artists and to be able to talk to them. So I ask that you please type your name into the chat window, and then I will call on you when we get to the question and answer period to turn on your microphone, your camera if you wish, to ask Vera your question directly. Please be aware that Vera Saltzman online artist talk and virtual tour are being recorded and will be available to watch at a later date on the Art Gallery of Regina's website. If you turn on your camera and ask a question with your microphone, your icon, your video image, or your voice may appear in this recording. I would like to begin tonight's studio tour and artist talk with Vera Saltzman by acknowledging that both Vera and I are joining you from the traditional lands referred to as Treaty 4 territory. Both Fort Qu'appelle and the city of Regina are located on Treaty 4 territory, the original lands of the Cree, Ojibwe, Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, Lakota, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. I also invite you to silently acknowledge the land under your feet, whether it may be treaty or unceded territory, and to consider those who were forced to move from those lands. On a personal note, I am grateful that my ancestors escaped starvation, religious persecution, and rule under a foreign power in their homeland before coming to this land. I am saddened that the same injustices and more have been visited on the original inhabitants of this land by Canadian settlers. It is important to acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past and move forward in partnership with Indigenous nations in the spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. The Art Gallery of Regina is a public nonprofit art gallery. Despite our name, we're not a city organization, nor are we very large. Our mission is to support artists and to engage audiences through contemporary art programming. We were founded as a satellite of the Mackenzie Art Gallery to support local artists and practices that were excluded from mainstream art institutions in the 1970s. This ethos still guides our support of Saskatchewan artists through exhibitions, learning opportunities, and public engagement. Vera Saltzman's Vera Saltzman's online artist talk and virtual studio tour are free for you to enjoy. For that, we are grateful to our core funders, the Sask Arts Board and the City of Regina, and to our sponsors, Terry Denan, Remax Crown Real Estate, and Harvey Linen Associates. Your support also makes it possible for the AGR to offer free and affordable activities like this one. Please visit our website, www.artgalleryofregina.ca, to become a member and to connect to events like our annual Member Show and Sale fundraiser until May 9th. In an effort to control the spread of COVID-19 and variants of concern, the Art Gallery of Regina is currently closed to the public. We encourage you to participate in our online programs and experience art safely. I am thrilled to introduce Vera Saltzman. Born and raised in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, photography has long been a back burner interest for Vera, but she didn't become serious about it until she moved more north to Nunavut. Struggling to fit in, she turned to her photography to build a bridge between herself and the Inuit, a friendship of sorts, a visual record of an intangible exchange. Now living in Fort Qu'appelle, Saskatchewan, she continues to work as a photographer, exploring themes of identity, place, and memory. Vera holds a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from Mount Allison University, a diploma of professional photography from the New York Institute of Photography, and is a graduate of the Portfolio Development Program at the School of Photographic Arts, Ottawa. Vera received the top prize, silver, in the Saskatchewan Prairie Light Photography Festival, which resulted in her first solo exhibition at the Godfrey Dean Gallery in Yorkton. She has also received 2 Applied Arts Awards for her creative excellence, and her series, The Shacks, won a place in the international journal, The Creative Quarterly. She was a finalist for Julia Margaret Cameron Awards International, a top 200 finalist for Photo Lucida's Critical Mass International, and a Robert McLaughlin Gallery Exposed finalist. Her work has been displayed nationally, including the Contact Festival of Photography, Art Toronto, and the Ottawa Art Gallery. She has also shown her work internationally in Oregon, San Francisco, Spain, and South Korea. Her work has appeared in numerous publications and online sites. Vera's work resides in the permanent collections of the Saskatchewan Arts Board, the Moose Jaw Museum and Art Gallery, and the City of Ottawa. She is represented by Slate Fine Art Gallery in Regina. Please welcome me in welcoming Vera Saltzman to our virtual stage. And you can use your reaction emoji there to clap if you don't want to turn on your mic to clap.
Okay, so we get started. Okay, I got to put my reading glasses on, everybody. And thank you all for coming. It's really fantastic to see so many names that I recognize. And I wish I could say hi to everybody, but unfortunately I can't do that right now. I'm going to share my screen and walk you through some photos. So just bear with me here for 1 second. I hope this will work. Screen share. Aha. Let's make this big. So a little bit of what I have is just going to be a quick repeat, I guess, on what Sandy said, but I'm going to take you on a little journey with me here. And first of all is where I was born in Cape Breton, which is someplace I'm missing a lot right now since I'm not able to get home. And these are just a few pictures of Cape Breton. This is not where I live, but I love this little Cape Breton house. And I really, really miss the ocean. This is the beach that I grew up on, Point Michaud Beach. So lived most of my life in Halifax area, which is the capital of the province of Nova Scotia, for those of you from New Zealand. Um, and we left Nova Scotia and moved to Nunavut, which is in Canada's Arctic. My husband and I spent 5 years up here, and it was here that I started to get a little bit more serious about photography. I mean, I'd been working full time up until this point in the business world, and I was also working um, pretty much full time when I was in Nunavut as well. But I did take that one course, which was um, a I want to say online course, but there was no such thing then. It was, they would send you VHS tapes and CDs, and that's how it went. And I'd get really excited if I sent a picture into the newspaper, at the Nunatsiaq News, and it got published, and my name would be on the byline. I was thrilled beyond. This is just a couple of portraits, probably the first portraits that I've ever taken of a couple of Inuit elders. And when I took the course, actually, the teacher didn't really like these portraits because I guess they were busy, but they were probably two of the favorite images that I ever took up there, because I just love looking at all of the details and in their homes, and I wish that I had more like this. So after here, we moved to Ottawa, and I was still working in the business world there. Um, I joined the RA Club, which shout out to my friends from the RA Club, who still support me greatly, and were great friends back then. And it was then that I learned about the School of the Photographic Arts in Ottawa. And eventually I ended up, this is their new school since I was there, but um, I ended up leaving my full-time job and going to study um, full-time at the School of Photographic Arts. And it's probably the biggest turning point for me that made the most difference in my life in photography, for a couple reasons. One was that their motto is vision, content, and craft. And I remember one of the founders of the school, Michael Tardioli, saying to me that it was really important to him when they came up with that motto, that vision and content came first before craft. And not to say that craft was not important, because you need all three, but really, if you're working in the arts world, you need to have that vision and content to go along with the craft. And I always keep thinking about that I need to have vision about my photography and what it is that I want to say. So I'm really glad that I found that school. The other thing that was interesting about SPOW was that we started shooting with film, and the philosophy then, and I think still is now, that they would teach you darkroom skills, and eventually you would take those darkroom skills and transfer them to work in Photoshop. And the reason for that was so that you would understand more of what you were doing. So you understood density and contrast and burning and dodging, and use those types of, that type of language when you were working in Photoshop. So you weren't just setting a preset, you were actually understanding what you were doing. And I think that that's made a big impression on me as well. Um, and there I am. I actually was was selected, I guess, to go back as an alumni to have a solo show at the school, which really meant a lot to me. Um, I have like I say, a restless mind, so I use a lot of different genres in my work, including landscape, architecture, portraiture, and self-portraiture. But I really love portraiture, and this is the first portrait series that I did. It's called Sue and Winnie. This was the first photo in it. It's my mother-in-law, and I had seen that she had kept her childhood doll, and I started to wonder why people did that. Um, and it really was the series was to remind me that we are mortal, and yeah, that, that that was, I guess, where I was in my life right there then. Um, so this work is quite old now, but just walk through a few of them. And there's me, a self-portrait with portraits. And Sue and Winnie, this is Sue, and the doll is Winnie, and that's who the series was named after. So I moved from Ottawa to Fort Qu'appelle, Saskatchewan, and it's here that I really, I think, was probably the loneliest I've been in a long while, even more so than when I had been living in the Arctic. Um, so I really again turned to my photography to, I guess, try to find meaning of in where I was, and to make friends and whatnot. Um, a lot of my images are of water, and I think when people who were born here on the prairies, they love the big open skies, and I just was looking for water all the time. And this image is called Somewhere I Call Home. And when I took it, I had to actually go back to my negatives and figure out where it was, because I couldn't figure out if it was, I had taken it at Cape Breton, or if it was in pardon me, in here in Saskatchewan, because we live on a lake, and it's actually here in Saskatchewan. But I really like it for that reason, because I was never really sure where it was. Again, landscape, this one I called Land Yachts, and I really liked it because when growing up, we called these big cars land yachts, and then to see it next to a sailboat, which is something that I did when I was living in Nova Scotia, really caught my eye. I believe that landscape is more than a physical place, that it's something that also encompasses memories, meanings, and associations. And I often say I feel like a transplant trying to put down roots. And I'll show you some of these. The hills around where I live remind me of hills in Cape Breton. Again, water, um, play structures. I seem to shoot a lot of play structures. I'm realizing as I go back over images. More water, that's the river here where I live. And these last 5 images are traveling through a program they have in Saskatchewan called the Organization of Saskatchewan Arts Councils, and it was curated into a show um, called The Flower May Not Look Like the Roots. And I just want to give a shout out to OSAC, as well as Yara McPherson, who was the curator for that show, for including my work in it. I do shoot a lot of trees as well. Just flick through some of these. And there's those big skies that prairie folks will love or play structures. This one I've been just playing with lately, and I went to a concert with Matt Anderson here in Regina. Matt Anderson is actually from Atlantic Canada, and he said that he used to live in Saskatchewan, and he used to look at the fields and imagine that they were the ocean. And when I look at this image, that's what I think of. So you never know, maybe someday I'll be able to have a whole series of these that are my ocean here in Saskatchewan. This one, a friend of mine's daughter said it reminded her of a Zoom call. So I have a whole series of grain elevators. There's over 20 of them now. And I think that a lot of people would think that this is all been done already, but I don't think you can ever have too many pictures of these grain elevators. They're such an iconic image for Saskatchewan, and unfortunately, they are being destroyed, taken down. They're just for various reasons. This one is now gone. This one is also gone. I photograph these, and when I do, I think of them as lighthouses. So in Nova Scotia, we would have lighthouses guiding sailors and fishermen, and but here on the prairies, people use the grain elevators as land markers to know where that they are. It's like every 7 miles, I think, pretty much there used to be a grain elevator. Shoot them on dull days. Um, so it's a little bit harder to, I can't just, be driving by and see a grain elevator and take a picture of it. I tried that, it didn't work. It just looks like, it doesn't look like me. It doesn't have the feel that I want it to have. The muted colors are something that I've incorporated into this series. They just bring me a feeling of melancholy, which is, I guess, how I feel about the loss of these elevators. I kind of look at each one of them as being a portrait and having their distinct personality. That's for you, Bob. And fishing shacks, again, I quite a few fishing shacks that I've shot. Um, I just love them as quirky little structures, but also they remind me of being home and fishing. So that's sort of where I am with uh, the landscape that I'm going to share right now. Um, I'm going to go quickly over this one. This was a series that I called Cry of the Lake Dwellers. It was, I typically shoot with film, but this was an alternative process called lumen printing. And what happened was there was a fish kill in our lake, or all these fish died. There were hundreds of fish that had died. And I used those dead fish to make these prints. And they're to remind us of what is happening to our lakes and to our environment. And I think each one is a call out to say to us to smarten up. And again, a different process, a connection to home through the fish. I had been working with some other lumen prints of plants and stuff at the time, but it was really these fish that I connected with. And I won't go into the process a whole lot because that's a story in itself, but they serve as a visual reminder of the effects that humans have on the earth. And I'll just go through these, a few of them. think this is, I was going to say this is the one the Saskatchewan Arts Board have in their collection, but it was actually the first one that looked like this, I think. And if you have any questions on this process, I'm happy to answer them. This is another little series that I did, again, something different, so you can see that I am using a lot of different processes. This one I call I Walk the Valley. Um, it was made with a homemade pinhole camera and paper negatives. And I liked the way that you kind of have this feeling of, I don't know, peeking into somebody else's life, I guess, because of the border around it. It's not a perfect pinhole, it's an imperfect one, and it just really worked for me and how I was feeling. This is there was again, as I mentioned, I had a profound sense of loneliness. And I think that it was brought on by my move here and leaving all my friends in Ottawa. I had finished, a fantastic time at SPOW, and that combined with good old menopause. So this is I Walk the Valley. I really enjoy doing self-portraiture and exploring my identity through photography. And I think that this series marries my whole struggle with finding a sense of place here in Saskatchewan. And this is the Qu'appelle Valley where I live. The next series is called O Human Child. This is the one that I did show in Ottawa. It was a back to a portrait series. And at this time, I had been reading W.O. Mitchell's book, Who Has Seen the Wind? And I was trying to learn more about Saskatchewan. It was a book that people my age would have read growing up in school, and it was set back in the 30s. And at the same time, I had taken a picture of a little girl. I'd made a portrait of her, and I started to think, I wonder what it's like to be a kid growing up in Saskatchewan today versus what it was like during W.O. Mitchell's time. And I decided to continue taking the portraits of the kids who were the same age as those children in W.O. Mitchell's book. And I wanted to think about people to think about what it's like for these kids in today's times and to compare and contrast to what it would have been like during W.O. Mitchell's times. So I think I also kind of was hoping that through this project, I'd have a chance to meet more people in Saskatchewan and get to know a few more people. And that really, it was amazing how people helped me to find kids, because I don't have children and I didn't know any kids, not a lot of kids anyhow, that I could reach out to. And other people made a big effort to do that for me. And I wondered how the landscape would help shape their personalities and how community would impact them, particularly in these times when Saskatchewan is changing a lot compared to what it would have been in W.O. Mitchell's time, with communications changing, schools are changing, entertainment, everything is online now. Family farms are morphing into these big commercial operations, and communities are shrinking, and people are moving to cities. So what is it like to be a rural kid in Saskatchewan? Because all of these kids live in rural Saskatchewan. This little girl has spina bifida, and she's like absolutely amazing. Um, I could go on and on about her. Just to give an idea of a little bit, I guess, about process again. Um, I shot film for these. I typically took one roll of film per child. Um, and this is, I would develop the negatives and myself and then scan them. And I would make a contact sheet just to look at them all. Um, and then work on them in Photoshop. And it's kind of interesting to see there's a lot that didn't really turn out, but I think this was the one out of all the 12, and I am always just like, whew, okay, there's one in that 12. That's good. And there's Kennedy, and the school behind us now closed. This is Katherine Stark. She's our local philanthropist. She has business cards that will tell you that. And she has been raising money since she was a little kid. She's 12 now. And I talked to her mom today, and she's raised $125,000 for the neonatal unit in Regina. And she was a top 40 under 40 at about the age of 10. And Nick, this is his first time learning how to ride his two-wheel bike, so he's quite proud of himself. And he wanted to know why, which is a question so many people want to know, why he couldn't smile in the pictures. And we told him that his mother actually said, well, Shavira's making art. And he looked and he goes, oh, okay. And from then on, he just was like no smile, just gave me the look. Really great kid. And a little fashionista with her New York t-shirt. And I love these pictures of kids with their dogs. This was on Papikassis First Nations territory, and I've worked long and hard to learn how to say Papikassis correct, as some of my friends here can tell me as they tried to teach me how to say it. And Lily told me she's going to stand like this from now on. So I thought that was pretty cool. So that was a human child. Oh yeah, one thing that when Nick said about not smiling, and I think you find that often in fine art photography, that people don't smile. The reason I asked them not to smile was I think that children are so often said, oh, smile for the camera, so instantly they put this on. And we all think that kids are happy because we see them smiling. And there's so much more going on in the lives of children in their little heads, that I think that without the smile, it causes you to pause and think about that they're not always happy. They may not be sad. They may be just thinking about whatever, but there's just lots, and you can come to your own conclusion about what those things might be. The next series I'll go through is what's your father's name? Where I grew up in Cape Breton, a common question that you ask when you meet somebody is, what's your father's name? And it's a way of placing people within the community. And it's something that I didn't have here. I really missed hearing that question. I just love the sound of it. What's your father's name? And I thought I would take a little bit of a different route here. I wanted to meet people, and through meeting people, I guess, feel like I belonged more in Saskatchewan than what I did. So the idea was that this was the first person that I took a portrait of. He's my neighbor up the street, and I asked him to then make a connection for me to take a portrait of the next person. So he knows Monique. Monique then found me Tara, and I would just show up at these people's homes. I had not met them before, and they would be so lovely uh, to let me take their portrait. Um, I like the whole idea of um, I guess the other thing I was thinking about is that, on Facebook we have friends, and now when you meet somebody, oh, you go and you look at Facebook to see who their friends are, and that whole idea of placing them within a community, it's like placing them within this Facebook world. And I thought this was a project that I could kind of sink my teeth in, that was really human, and contact with people rather than um, just being online all the time. So there were 11 I had done of these. They take a bit of time because by the time you get this person to line up the next person for you, and then your lives all uh, kind of fall into sync as to when you can make the portrait. So it's a slow project. It'll take a while for me to do it, and I knew that going into it. It wasn't like I was saying like I have to do this in 6 months or something. This is something that will be ongoing. But we know what happens next. COVID hits, and I haven't touched this project now since that happened. Um, I know a lot of people out there in um, the photography world or have been able to continue on making portraiture. Um, and I just don't have it in me. It's for me, part of the whole process is to be able to see their faces for one. So I wasn't interested in doing portraits of people with masks. And I, I really just love taking the time to talk to them, and get to know them a little bit. And I right now with COVID, I don't think it's a good time to be doing that. Um, so yes, we'll take a little break here and talk about, I call this my roadside stop. And just three little things I wanted to take a time to talk about mental health, basically, in the photography world. One is for me personally, it's this little voice in my head that for as long as I've known has said, you're not good enough, you're not a photographer, you're a fake, all of these things. And no, but I say that to you, not wanting people to go, oh yes, no, you are a photographer. I say that so that for other people out there, and I know that there are other people out there who have these feelings, that you're not alone, that many of us do feel this way often, and that to just keep pushing through and keep making work. And it may not be award-winning work, but it'll be something that means something to us. And I touched on social media. It's a bad place for me. I've really tried to come away from Facebook as much as I can, but it's a double-edged sword because we promote our work through Facebook and social media, Instagram, and all those things. So it's part of our marketing strategy. But there you have it. And then COVID, like everybody else out there, I think I maybe not like everybody, but I personally hit the couch and did a lot of Netflix time, and I guess in a way took time to think about things as well. I had said earlier, about going through menopause, and that had really affected me and my whole feelings and how I felt when I moved to Saskatchewan. Um, and this is why I share this image here now. It seems kind of weird sharing this in a talk where you're talking about a sense of place, but I think for an artist, or photographer, what's going on inside their head and what they're feeling comes out in their other work as well. So I think if there is that feeling of melancholy or sadness sometimes that people often say they feel in my work, that's probably coming from a place inside of me. So this was just a diptych that I made during COVID and thought I would share. I think I'm really running late here. By the side of the road, um, another series that I've been working on for a while. Um, and I finally pulled it together. What I have, I don't know if there'll be more. I keep seeing these little green and white houses and wanting to take pictures of them. So who knows? I'm just going to read quickly what I have written here that goes along with this. Um, it's called By the Side of the Road. I remember she put fried fish in the oven to keep warm, working late maybe. Then the pacing, a phone call, more pacing. Something's wrong, and it was. That night, my father died in an industrial accident, leaving my mother to raise me alone. A partially built house next door to the trailer where we lived. My mother eventually had the house completed, and we moved in. I remember the green and white siding and a decorative plate hanging by the side of the door with the words, "Let me live in a house by the side of the road and be a friend to man." This work is for my mother, Alice, and I will leave that there. Um, The other thing that I did during COVID was I had taken some images of the mud bogs pre-COVID, and I had never ever pulled the work together into a series, and I did that. And the reason I'm including this in this talk where we talking about a sense of place is that I saw this sign. It was a quirky sign, hand painted on some plywood along the side of the road, advertising mud bogs, and I had no idea what they were. I don't think it's something they do on the East Coast. Basically, they race for 4x4 vehicles through pits of mud, and to get to be a champion, I guess. Um, and I went to see what they were all about. And yes, the races were quite a spectacle, but it was really what was happening along the sidelines that caught my attention and that I was interested in photographing. And it was the people, the there was so much more going on. There were people selling 50-50 tickets. There were kids playing and looking for coins in piles of sand. There were people in beer gardens drinking. And after a lot of thought about this project, what it's come to mean to me, and what I think I was seeing was that there was a sense of community here. And it wasn't something that I expected to find. I mean, a lot of people think that when they think of the mud bogs, they think of it as a redneck's paradise, and it probably is. But there's a side to it that's very, very interesting and very caring about one another. And through this building of shared history, I think that they are building community and connection. And in these times, I think that connection is something that we all crave. And so I share with you tonight the mud bogs of Lipton, Saskatchewan. This guy was fantastic. When I asked him to take his portrait, he would have done anything, yes, to promote the mud bogs. You know, it was all good. She was just a full of beans, lovebirds. That's just a few of them. We're almost done. This is work that I also have never really shared before. It's just 10 little images. I call it Prairie Tears. And it goes back to a time, W.B. Yeats's poem, The Stolen Child. It's another line out of that. Oh, Human Child, the title of that came from The Stolen Child. But there's a line in it that says, "For the world is more full of weeping than you will ever know." And I share these images of Saskatchewan during this time of COVID. One of the things that I've been thinking a lot about is the whole idea that we get caught up on, oh, you know, she's a photographer, she uses film. Well, does that make her an artist? Well, no. I think that you can make images with whatever camera you have. And this particular time I used an iPhone, and I don't think I could have got these images with another camera. Maybe another digital camera, but it would have been hard. So I see myself doing a little bit more of that in the future. So photographing the local iconography, landscapes, making portraits of people, and even making images of dead fish helps me to foster attachment and feel like I belong here. And this was from some work that I'm hoping to do called, not hoping to do, it's a work in progress, called The Wintering. And that was from this winter. And I'm just going to close with a quote from Robert Adams. He says, "At our best and most fortunate, we make pictures because of what stands in front of the camera, to honor what is greater and more interesting than we are. We never accomplish this perfectly, though in return we are given something perfect, a sense of inclusion." Oh my. Can you see me? Oh, okay, I'm back. Are you asleep? Sandy?
Yes, Vera, yeah, here. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to, both Jess and I have the same icon here, so I'm trying to add myself. So I know, Vera, you're going to take us on a tour of your home-based studio. Some people had some comments and some questions for you in the chat. Did you want to invite them to ask their questions right now before we do the studio tour?
Sure, whatever works.
Okay.
The studio tour is super quick, folks.
So I see that Noreen had a question for you, so I can invite Noreen to turn on her microphone and her camera if she wishes and ask her question.
Thanks, Sandy. So I'm not turning on my video because I'm sitting at home in my jammies drinking wine. So I'll just leave it at that. But I noticed that in your series, that older work with the dolls, yes, that everyone looked very, very serious. And I was wondering if that was something that you sort of instructed them about as far as that facial expression.
Yes. Yeah, yes, it is. Um, I was looking for a feeling of, again, of melancholy, of, thinking back, nostalgia, I guess, thinking back to a time when we had these dolls and they were our best friends and our confidants and somebody that we played with. And those times are gone. And these women are all over 40. We're all on the downward side, I would say, of life. You're starting to look back at what happened to you as a kid, and I wanted it to have that, I guess, that sense of momentum mori. Did I say that right?
So that is a thread that seems to carry through your work. Can you talk a little bit about that sort of aspect of melancholy and I was going to say regret, but not necessarily that's there, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. It definitely does, and I think that's probably a few things. One, it's where I took up my career in photography, at what point in my life that I went into photography in a serious way. I was older, so I think these are things that I myself are thinking about, looking back. Um, so I would say that it's reflective of where I am in my life. Um, I think maybe too, as a person, I'm one of these people that have a hard time letting go of the past. Some people can move along quite easily, and I tend to hold on for a long time.
great. Thanks, Vera.
Oh, okay, Vera, I can see that Margaret has also placed a question in the chat for you. Margaret, did you want to turn on your microphone and potentially your camera to ask your question?
Sure. I don't know if people want to stare at me. I'm just sitting in my kitchen here. Here we go. This is my big thing. I'm getting older too, Vera, so I've got my regular glasses and my reading glasses. This is my husband, Gerald, in the background. He's been painting all evening. I've all over the years looking at your photography, I've been so fascinated with your decisions about composition. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your relationship with symmetry. Sometimes you're very symmetrical with just a touch or a hint of asymmetry, just to like a frisson. So that was my first question.
I remember when I first came here to Saskatchewan, and I won't say where I went, but I went someplace, and somebody said, "Oh yes, I've seen your work, and it's too bad that you don't understand the rule of thirds." I was like, okay, yeah, but if you shoot square, which I normally do, because I'm using a Hasselblad camera, which the aspect ratio is square. One of the rule of thirds doesn't work with it. It just doesn't work. So there are, angles that look better, and the one I've chosen is one that's very simple and straightforward. And I feel like that minimalist kind of feel is something that goes along again with that feeling that I'm trying to pass along, like, that it's kind of, I don't know, that you're there all by yourself in the world. Yeah, so does that answer?
Yeah, that's awesome. It makes a lot of sense. But I thought a lot about your pictures of grain alligers, because you're right. It is an image that became quite associated with Saskatchewan, a sense of nostalgia, but I don't necessarily feel that nostalgia with your elevators. And so I love that you speak of them as portraits, and that makes a lot more sense for the green elevators. My second question was about the text that you shared tonight, and I really, really enjoy that you have, oh, for heaven's sakes, Charles. I love that you shared books and different things that inspired you while you're taking pictures. Can you talk a little bit about the text and that what role it plays in your art practice?
Are you talking about the green and white houses? That one?
Well, a bit of both, because sometimes you're reading a book and it's inspiring your choices in photography. And yes, the second piece with the green and white house, that seems like something that you wrote to go with the work specifically.
Yeah, it was. So with regards to the green and white house, um, yeah, since coming to Saskatchewan and seeing these little green and white houses everywhere, I'm sure that they're all across Canada. They're reflective of the 1970s of that time. And so yes, I did write that text. I'm actually a terrible writer, which so many photographers I think will say. Um, but that one I had somebody edit it for me. I didn't want it to sound like a typical artist statement. It was something that was very personal. I didn't have a lot of big fancy words to go along with it. I just wanted it simple and to tell the story of what the work means to me. With regards to text otherwise and reading books and stuff, I think I'm always, on the lookout for how I can express what's going on inside this head of mine. And I use different, I think, different ways to do that. And text certainly helps. Yeah. Hello.
Yes. Hi. Hi, Vera. It's Sandy again. So our chat is filling up with questions. We have a question from Alex and another question from Noreen. So do you want to maybe postpone the questions until we do the tour? We go from the conceptual to the practical techie talk, or do you want to continue to go ahead with questions right now?
Why don't we do the little bit of the tour here, and that way if people want to sign off early, they can, because I'm aware that some people are up late.
Sure, and there's lots of, we'll share the comments from the chat with you later, Vera, because so many people just sending you well wishes, congratulations, and love through the chat. And it's interesting, we've, as I said, we've been talking more about conceptual and ideas. And in our preparation for tonight's presentation, you and I had a few talks, and I was telling you about going into a photography store and having all the male photographers talk over my head very, very much deliberately. And so I appreciate both how warm and welcoming you've been about your practice, which is undoubtedly technical. You just talked about the Hasselblad's aspect ratio. But I think also it's really inspiring for people to connect to someone who's really carved out this way to make this professional quality artwork at home. And I think it's really, I'm very excited for you to share what your home setup is, because I think it is truly extraordinary and inspiring and kind of empowering to think, yes, this is not beyond my reach. This technology can, I won't spoil the surprise of what your processing a home lab is like.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, congratulations. All right. Well, it wouldn't be a Zoom
Yeah.
meeting without the title thing. So great. This is the second part of tonight's artist talk and studio tour. And Vera is taking her into her home photo developing lab.
Yeah.
It's the glamour.
Okay. The glamour of it all. So here it is. Ta-da. It's a bathroom, and I have all my chemicals there. This big Jobo is what I use for developing my color film. And yeah, that's about it. Close the door and put film in a dark on the canister or on the reel, sorry, someplace dark. And I do everything in here as far as developing goes.
Can you explain what a Jobo is, Vera?
So this is to develop color film. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah. And there's water in here. So there's a motor. The water will heat up. When you're developing color film, the temperature is important that you keep it as consistent as possible. It's much trickier than black and white film. And so the film is on on a reel in this canister. Water will, when I turn the motor on, will be coming up through here. This is turning, chemicals go in here, and you lift. Oh, my husband left, he was going to be my assistant, but yeah, I lift this up and dump out chemicals here, and some of them you keep and reuse. And this is my book that I put down, and dump my chemicals into here back again, the ones that I can reuse. So yeah.
So this book is an important part of your technical process.
Yes, and we won't tell my husband that I totally ruined that book because it was his. Yeah, so this is basically, I don't have a big fancy dark room or anything. So I develop my negatives and scan them. I haven't been working silver gelatin. And then I will walk out here. This is our little area where I pull down. If I'm doing portraits, pull that down. And otherwise it's all, put away generally. And you have your workout area and your Netflix area. And that's, and for Margaret with the cat, where did my cat go? There, for all you cat lovers out there.
Are those all cameras, different cameras that are by your portrait center?
Yeah, so I put these out. Sorry. This is a 4x5, so it's a large format camera. The picture of me in the bed and the one with the eggs, I did that with this camera. You shoot a single sheet of film with it, and then I develop it in a tray in a dark room. And this is my, whoops. My Hasselblad. Sorry, I'll just put that down. So the viewfinder's on top, you're looking down into it, which one of the little boys in that so hard series asked me why I was looking inside the box, what was inside of it. And then I have my box here that I made the series called like Walk the Valley. It's my little pinhole camera that I made. A Holga, which is a plastic cheapy camera. I haven't had a whole lot of success with it. You use film in it as well, and it's hasn't been my favorite, to be honest. My 2.1 megapixel that I brought up to Nunavut with me. And then I have a digital camera that I bought off of it's a Nikon D300. Oops. And that's it. I bought it off of Facebook, I think. Here I am criticizing Facebook.
Well, social media, it's good to know that social media has its uses. Something positive can come from it. Thanks for showing us around, Vera. Is that everything you were going to share with us?
I mean, that's about it. I have that space, that bathroom I use for my dark room, and here I have my. Whoops, I'm going to. It's just my printer and my scanner. Yeah. My little notes to myself, like dare to suck. There's another one that says, don't be a wimp. I think it says, don't be some bad fellow or F word. I have another room that I set up trays in for when I'm developing developing negatives but from the 4.5. So I'm in here with the door closed and it's totally dark. I have to do this all in the dark, and I just do them one at a time. My cameraman hit the road on me.
And do you also have any examples of your negatives that you've developed in your guest bathroom that has become your photo developing or your negative developing lab there? I know you mentioned that you develop your negatives and then you scan them and work with them digitally. It's this interesting hybrid process.
Yeah, it's actually pretty common now in the photography world. So there's a sheet of negatives. If that's what you meant.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
So, yep, you only get 12 photos with a medium format camera. With the Hasselblad, you get 12 photos per roll of film. So the negatives are big compared to what you would get with a 35 millimeter camera.
Excellent. Okay, well, Vera, if you're ready to, I know that people have lots of questions and they're eager to get to them. So if you would like to move on to the question part of tonight, we can certainly do that. Vera, I want to thank you for so generously sharing your practice, your photographs and the thought process behind them, and your home studio with all of your innovative solutions to creating high quality photographic work at home. Like I said, I do think it's kind of inspiring and delightful to see how you have carved out this place for your practice in your home. And right now, during the COVID-19 pandemic, more than ever, it's important for artists to be able to find solutions to work without access to some of the resources they might be used to having at their disposal. And I mentioned earlier that, we do these talks even online because it's so important. It's so valuable for all of the people who've tuned in to connect with artists. And people are really eager to get to know artists. And I was stunned by your honesty and how open you were with sharing your self-doubts, to talk about mental health and menopause and these issues that kind of permeate your photographic process, and the work that you make in these ways that aren't, they're not didactic. You're not really putting these issues right in people's faces, but these, as you mentioned, this sense of melancholy kind of pervades all of your work. And yeah, I just wanted to thank you for that honesty, because I think that that is really important for people to hear. And as you mentioned, especially right now. So I know that Alex and Noreen had questions. So I will ask Alex first to come on if he wishes.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Hi, Vera. First of all, thanks for the talk and the insights. It was all very interesting. So I guess you could say I'm an aspiring photographer, sort of, here in Saskatchewan. Just been trying to improve through trial and error over the past couple years. And one of the biggest hurdles I find is keeping it up throughout the winter, when there's 4 hours of daylight, you can't be outside for more than half an hour at a time, and everything is the same color. So there's only so many different ways to shoot a snowy neighborhood. I wonder if you have ever run up against that challenge, and if you have any advice to keep getting out and shooting through the 3/4 of a year here that describes.
Good question. I think I really love images made in the winter time, because again, of that minimalistic quality that they have. So I'm drawn to the winter. I did this year set a little goal for myself. I'm not a photographer, to be honest, who's out there, all the time taking pictures. I kind of ebb and flow. I take pictures when I feel like taking pictures, and when I don't feel like taking pictures, I'm doing something else. Somebody said about text and what role books play, and just taking the time to think about what your vision is for your photography and what ideas you have percolating your head, like what research do you need to do to make those all come into a reality. I did set a little goal for myself, because I found that I was really not shooting. And I said, okay, I'm going to start the year, January 1st, by taking 1 roll of film a week. You think that's not very hard. 12 pictures, Vera, come on. And I went gangbusters for about, I don't know, a month and a half. I had 8 rolls of film and was pretty proud of myself, but I realized that I wasn't getting images that I really was happy with. I mean, I was going out and taking pictures for the sake of taking pictures. And there's certain weather that I look for. And I think I'm better off just waiting and going when I'm going to find the images that I'm drawn to. So don't
Great. Thanks very much.
Super question, Alex. Thank you. And super answer, Vera. I think, sometimes when I see my friends posting this, drawing a day challenge or something, I think, how can anyone do that? And I think that, resting, taking care of yourself, exercising, you showed us your exercise area, watching some Netflix, letting your ideas form is as important as actually making. So I think that's wonderful. Oh, Noreen, are you still here, ready to ask a question?
She gone.
She's gone. Oh, okay. Sorry. Sorry to Noreen to cut her off. So I do invite anyone to just pop their name into the chat, and I will invite you to get on your microphone camera if you wish, or if you just want me to read out your question for Vera, I'm happy to do that too. And I have questions for Vera, of course. One thing that really was really delightful for me was to see these earliest photographs you took in Nunavut of the elders, and you had talked about how your teacher had didn't really like those photos because they felt the composition was too busy, and that all of that detail, that mise en scène with like their lives written on the walls and every shelf in the kitchen stuffed with a story about their lives, I thought was so rich and so wonderful. And it did make me think that not only do those photographs really tell a story about the people in them, but I do believe that artists tell stories through their work, even if they aren't stories for all viewers. And I know you talked about this before, but I wonder, can you tell me about some of the stories you're communicating in your photographs, either through your formal qualities or through subject matter?
I think that for me, I tell stories about things that interest me. I had somebody the other day, I listened to tons of, artist talks and teachers on YouTube and stuff. And somebody said, oh, just shoot what makes you happy. And I thought, no, that's not what I do. I don't really shoot what makes me happy. I shoot what interests me, I think. So, all of my work about being in Saskatchewan and trying to make a home here and find my place amongst these people were all things that just basically interested me, and they're just my story. They're nothing earth-shattering. I'm not out shooting pictures of natural disasters or great environmental things that are happening. They're just me. They're just my things that I'm interested in. And the most that you can hope for as an artist is that somebody else connects with them and that they have similar interests. And there will be those that do, and there'll be those that don't. So that's sort of the approach that I've been taking to it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have a connection to something, an idea, a state of mind, other people, these are pretty universal experiences. And
Human condition, I believe it's called.
yeah. Moving from the universal to something that's specific, I think a lot of your photographs that really create a sense of space and convey the notion of Saskatchewan are something, of course, that people in this province respond strongly to. And Mark had made a comment in the chat. I was wondering if you had any thoughts to share on your elevator project and adapting to different formats, such as your publication Another Place.
Adapting, you mean having those image printed someplace else? I'm not sure if I understand that question, to be honest.
I think Mark might be here. Mark, did you want to turn on your microphone and your camera and
Sure, I'll turn on my mic. No, I became familiar with your work through your Another Place's zine that was just published, and I was curious about as you're going into a project, are you thinking about the output? Are you thinking about the format, the size, the layout, or does that come organically through the project? I'd imagine these large on a wall are very different than kind of an intimate sort of handheld publication. And I just kind of curious about your process in thinking about that.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, those images I have only printed them as a limited edition in 2 sizes, and they were 10 by 10 and 15 by 15. And I print them all myself on my little Epson 3880 printer here. So most of the work that I've been showing is stuff that I've been printing myself, because it's just easier. Where we live, it's in rural Saskatchewan. There are some printers that I found one that I've just started to work with. And it's ironing out what paper and the process. Like I had something printed and colors didn't match and yada, yada, yada. So right now I'm doing small prints, which I know is not, I just sat in a seminar yesterday with somebody out of the Palm Springs Photo Festival, and she was saying how big prints are the way to go. And maybe, but I'm not there right now. Yeah, so there are some that you look at. I mean, I have vision in my head of like that image of me in the bed and the eggs. You know, I see that printed large, and then sometimes I see things that are just small. So I guess it's an organic kind of process. Like the fish, I had those printed large, and I loved them printed large because they kind of took on a life of their own. They were dead fish, but they seemed real. I don't know, Mark, I'm not very good, I don't think, at answering your questions.
No, that was great. Thank you.
Okay.
It strikes me as actually maybe more poignant to have these disappearing monoliths of prairie grain elevators printed kind of small. And I liked Mark's word intimate, you know, as if we're really trying to hold on to just the tiniest scrap of something that used to have such importance here in Saskatchewan, especially.
Yeah. I don't think everything has to be printed big, personally. I think you need to make those decisions.
Vera, I wonder, well, somebody here in the chat, Gary, said that you spoke in an SPAO class, and he found your words and approach to be inspiring. And that kind of leads me to a question. You know, what were some of the most meaning experiences and sources of support and learning that you've had as an artist?
Well, I think for one, SPAO, I mean, there's no doubt the mark that it made on my life going there for 2 years at the age that I went. I mean, it had a big impact on me. And when I moved here to Saskatchewan and I didn't have that circle around me and had to come up with my own, I shout out to Kate Hirschberger, who's and Sue Bland and Valerie Zink, Gary Robbins, these people who I found in the art community here who took me under their wing. And they weren't all photographers. And what I learned is that it's just, you know, being an artist, and people can help one another out and support one another and encourage one another. And that's that. So friends and fellow artists and fellow photographers, whatever you want to call yourselves, I think was huge for me out here. And I just, you know, I lucked into being represented by Slate Gallery. I think I was in the right place at the right time. They were new, starting up, and I had portfolios of work to show them. And yeah, they've been a tremendous support to me as well.
Great, incredible. Well, if anyone, I'll just remind people, if you have questions, put your name in the chat, or you can type your entire question in the chat for me to read it.
Cook, I got a shout out to Lawrence Cook, who in Ottawa still provides me with technical support whenever I need it.
That is lovely. That is also meaningful support, isn't it? And having an artist community that you can talk about ideas that are important to you, all incredibly important. Oh, I was thinking about your mud bogger or mud bogging photos, and I think that series is so delightful. Maybe it's because my family are all rednecks that they all have their ATVs and they go hunting and they live on their ranches and but I find these people just so real. But you also were talking about these connections that you make with people through photography. So can you tell me a little bit about, I don't know if you have any special relationships that have evolved from taking photographs of the land or the people of Saskatchewan, because you've also moved around quite a lot and you're really finding your place here through the lens of your camera.
I have to think now.
I am really putting you on the spot. Apologies.
I guess I would say that with the human child and the children, the little girl with spina bifida, she probably had the biggest impact on me, of all of the images I made of portraits of people. Yeah, I think she's the one that I will follow along, and one of the reasons why I probably stay on Facebook is to see what's going on in her life. Just tremendous vitality and fierceness, and just never gives up. And so, a reminder to me when I have my little meltdown about I suck, to things aren't that bad. Suck it up, princess. Get on with it.
Yeah, also daring to suck. It is a really inspiring thing as well. We meet inspiring people who battle against the odds, but I think also, your inspirational message to yourself, dare to suck, is really wonderful as well. So Michelle has popped something in the chat here. She said, I still remember our conversations when you were deciding whether to take a leave of absence from your full-time job to go to SPOW. What a great decision for you. So yeah, that's a big thing you mentioned. That when you were in Nunavut, you were still and in Ottawa still working full time, and that's a big leap of faith to kind of take, as you mentioned, at a certain point in your life, to say, yes, I am an artist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think it was. I mean, yeah. I mean, but I'm pretty privileged, right? I had worked for a long time, and I'm married. I have nothing that I want for in life. So it was different for me doing it at my age, I think, than doing it when you're a 20-year-old and struggling to pay the bills, right? So I don't take any of that for granted for a moment. But
that's so self-aware.
You're gonna die in a cubicle, and I couldn't do that anymore. But I was lucky, right? Again, I was lucky.
And that is the other privilege as artists, that we can make things and feel satisfied that we've made relationships and made a difference, as well as making our artworks. Well, I'm going to maybe give, I had a big list of questions here, Vera, but you answered them all already in your talk. So if I'm going to give another little bit of time for people to type their name into the chat if they do want to turn on their microphone, potentially their camera, and ask a question, or even just to send you a personal message, as people have been doing through the chat, just letting you know how much they've appreciated you sharing your work and how much it has meant to them previously, as well as seeing it tonight. Oh, and I noticed that some people were a little bit late joining us tonight. So I will remind people that the Art Gallery of Regina is recording this Zoom artist talk and a studio tour with Vera Saltzman. So it will be available for you to watch at your leisure on our website. And I'll edit out the part at the beginning where we were just chatting. So yeah, so we invite you to review and enjoy Vera's full artist talk at your leisure. And I see there is a message in the chat from Alex, has another question. So yeah, Alex, please turn on your microphone and your camera.
Hello, it's me again. I came up with another question. So, I mean, in this day and age, it's tempting to think with so many resources online that an aspiring photographer could learn everything they wanted to know just from YouTube videos and online tutorials and guides and all the resources out there. But at the same time, I can't shake the feeling that there's something you get from a more formal education at an actual photography institute or college or school that you just can't get from the wealth of resources that you can just find for free online. I wonder if you think, is there any acceptable substitute to an actual time at a photography school? Or is that, do you get something indispensable that there's no substitute for from that experience?
I think that there are a lot of self-taught photographers out there who are amazing. And it can be done for sure. And I think that when you go to school, you learn art history, you learn, how just marketing and how to pull together projects and portfolios. But for me, it was that opportunity to talk to people, sitting around a table and discussing a project and saying why it works and why it doesn't work. And I think those were the things that I got out of going to SPAO. But there are opportunities to do stuff like that even online now. And maybe that's one of the things coming out of COVID that we've all realized, right? Right now at SPAO, they're offering a lot more mentoring courses online. They're offering, all sorts of online courses, and I go back to them because that's what I know. So there's, things that you can do, but also I would say surrounding yourself with people who are artists and who are willing to talk about these things. That's probably one of the biggest, but I think it can be done.
Thanks very much.
And you can email me anytime you want.
Careful, I might just take you up on that. So
no problem.
All right, thanks again.
Yeah, you've got an artist friend in Vera, so there you go. Okay, well, Vera, I want to thank you for your sensitivity and openness, as well, of course, for allowing the Art Gallery of Regina to invite our viewers into your home studio. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you about your photographic art practice in such depth and to see how and where you create your work. And I want to thank all of the people who tuned in tonight for joining the Art Gallery of Regina on Zoom or Facebook Live. And once again, please visit the artgalleryofregina.ca to learn more about the AGR's online and in-person programming. We'll also be posting a recording of tonight's presentation. And oh, thanks. Great questions in the chat. Vera, I'll send all our chat comments to you as well so you can enjoy them. And oh, I just wanted to mention this sort of funny note is that we postponed this presentation of Vera's for almost a year because of COVID-19 and our closure as a public location. And we had originally asked Vera to do her artist talk to try and entice people to come to our very boring and dry annual general meeting. So it's really wonderful that people could join us online for something that was neither boring nor dry. But I still hope you'll come to our annual general meeting that'll also be online this year. So thank you.